The subtle art of setting healthy boundaries with your loved ones. Meet Jim. Jim doesn't want to hang out with his boss Michael every weekend after office because he has other work he should be doing. So, Jim politely tells Michael the truth, and Michael understands. Meet Artemis. Artemis is afraid of dogs, so she tells her friend Dee that she is uncomfortable around Rufus, and it's better if he's kept on a leash while Dee is visiting her home. Dee thinks her dog is harmless, but still agrees to keep Rufus on a leash because she understands how Artemis feels about dogs. Meet Frank. Frank has a personal policy of not loaning money above $300 to friends and family. When Charlie, his son, asks him to loan him $1,000, Frank declines. In turn, Charlie throws tantrums, threatens to leave home, and cut off ties with Frank if he doesn't give him the money. Frank stands his ground and refuses to give in to Charlie's demand, no matter the consequences. Can you tell what's common between these three scenarios? In all three situations, the person trying to set boundaries succeeds. But you can also probably tell that what Frank had to endure to make sure his boundary is respected is much tougher than what Jim and Artemis faced. That's because Frank was dealing with someone close to him, someone who didn't understand or refused to respect his boundary. That's something you can expect to face too. It isn't easy to set boundaries with your loved ones. After all, nobody likes to say no to people who are close to them. But we must accept the fact that setting boundaries is a good way to take care of ourselves. Boundaries are not about us being in control. They are a tool that we can use to set clear expectations of how we want to be treated and what others can expect from us in return. But why do we often avoid bringing up this topic with our loved ones? Is it because we're afraid of coming off as rude or selfish? Or is it because we think they'll resist our efforts and will argue, ignore, blame, or manipulate us instead? The truth is that we can't control how someone else treats us. But we have total control over how we treat ourselves and how we respond to the treatment we receive from others. While it might be easy to cut off toxic or negative people from your life, you can't do the same when they happen to be your partner, parents, children, or anyone you genuinely care about. You might even feel that there's no need to establish boundaries because being available to them is the least you could do. But that is a recipe for disaster, and ultimately, you're likely to end up bitter, resentful, and burnt out for putting their needs before yours. What if we told you there's a more subtle way to set boundaries with your loved ones? Yes, you can indeed set boundaries with your loved ones without coming off as selfish or rude. And it begins by accepting one simple thing. Boundaries have nothing to do with how much you love a person. They're not punishments or betrayals. They simply mean that you have clear principles that define the behaviours you'll tolerate from others and how you'll react to those behaviours in return. Once you've accepted that, challenge the guilt you'll inevitably feel if you've never set boundaries with a close one before. It's normal to worry about how your boundaries may impact the other person, or if they will honour those. But know that what they do, or choose not to do, is entirely on themselves. When you first challenge that idea, it will feel strange and uncomfortable, but you'll get through it in time. When communicating the boundary, it's best to express the feelings behind it as well, since there's always a chance of you stepping on their toe. Sharing your emotions that lead to setting the boundary is essential. Approach the conversation with gentleness and compassion. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable when communicating, and be prepared to listen and empathise with the other person. Also, respond with positivity and accentuate all the positive results this boundary can bring. Tell them that the limitations you're willing to set will make you a happier and kinder human being. That way, you'll be able to be there to help them when they need it. Remember that you are changing your behaviour, not theirs. You're allowing them to change if they should choose, but controlling them is not your intention. And if they refuse to accept your boundaries, then stand your ground. Effectively communicating your boundary means leading with clarity, compassion, positivity, and firmly standing by your principles no matter what. If you don't stand your ground, they'll likely keep taking advantage of you. Try to reiterate the positives this boundary may bring, but if you still face resistance, then you're left with no choice but to cut ties. Cutting ties with your loved ones is perhaps the toughest thing you'll ever do in your life. But when your boundaries are not being respected, you have to be willing to walk away from that relationship. You might even have to shut down all means of contact by blocking their phone number and removing them from your social media accounts. Taking an extreme step such as this one will be tough when dealing with parents or other family members, but there's no relationship worth holding on to if it causes you distress and makes you lose self-respect. Subtlety can work only if the other person is receptive of your ideas. If they are not, then stick to your principles and remove yourself from the situation. Setting healthy boundaries is not the kind of skill we're taught in school. However, it is something everyone should learn to protect their emotional well-being. By being vocal about your expectations, you're giving people close to you the roadmap for succeeding in their relationship with you. And that is priceless. If you learned something from this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and maybe even share with a friend who needs to see this. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to receive notifications for future videos.